What if the raise you've been working so hard for is the exact thing that makes you poorer 5 years from now? I know, that sounds completely backwards. Because everything we're taught says more title equals more success, and more success equals more money. That's just how the game works, right? You climb, you earn, you win. But here's what nobody in personal finance, investing, or career coaching ever connects clearly enough. And it's costing people years of progress they will never get back. The move that looks biggest isn't always the move that builds real wealth. Maybe you're 28, maybe you're 35, maybe you've got a decent paycheck, a real routine, and a quiet anxiety you don't say out loud. You're working harder than ever. Your bills are paid, your income looks solid on paper. You might even have a few investments started. But something still feels off. The gap between what you earn and what you actually keep never gets as wide as it should. And here's the uncomfortable part. That's not always a spending problem. Sometimes the damage starts much earlier. It starts the moment someone accepts a career path that grows their status faster than it grows their actual financial stability. And when that happens, the paycheck can rise while the foundation underneath it quietly starts to crack. That's why so many sharp, driven people end up stuck. They make more, but they're more exhausted. They gain a better title, but they lose their margin. They step into roles that look powerful from the outside, while stress expands, consistency breaks down, and the ability to build real financial security actually gets worse. And almost nobody warns you when that's happening. They congratulate you. They call it ambition. They tell you to be grateful, say yes, keep climbing. And you believe them, because from the outside, it looks exactly like winning. But what if the latter is leaning against the wrong wall? In this video, I'm going to show you something most financial education conversations completely miss. Your career decisions don't just shape your salary. They shape your stress load, your savings rate, your investment behavior, your time horizon, and ultimately the kind of financial life you're actually able to build. That means one wrong promotion can quietly trigger a chain reaction you don't even notice until it's already well underway. You earn more, your schedule gets heavier, your mental bandwidth shrinks, your spending rises because stress is expensive, your investing becomes inconsistent and reactive. And by the time you notice the pattern, you're making more money than ever and feeling less financially secure than before. That contradiction is not an accident. It is a mechanism. And once you see it, you'll recognize it everywhere. In managers who were brilliant specialists, in high earners living paycheck to paycheck, in professionals who look great on LinkedIn and privately feel trapped by the very life they worked so hard to build. This isn't about refusing growth. It's about understanding which kind of growth actually moves the needle. There is a real difference between income and utility, between a promotion and real leverage, between looking successful and becoming financially unshakable. Most people never learn that difference until they've already traded years of their life for a title that drains them dry. And if you miss it early, the cost is not just emotional, it's mathematical. Because wealth isn't only built by what you earn. It's built by what you can sustain, protect, invest, and repeat for a long time without burning out. Some opportunities quietly destroy the very system that made you valuable in the first place. So before we talk about raises, promotions, and the story people tell themselves about winning, we need to confront one far more uncomfortable question. What if the next step up in your career isn't a reward? What if it's a financial identity test you were never taught how to recognize? And what makes it truly dangerous is that the people who fail it usually believe they're winning, right until the numbers start telling a very different story. Stay with me, because what comes next is where the real trap reveals itself. Let me paint you a picture. Someone gets promoted. Salary jumps. Friends are texting. Family says they've finally made it. LinkedIn lights up. The title sounds stronger. The future feels bigger. And for a few weeks, maybe even a few months, it actually feels true. So they upgrade something small at first. Better apartment, a nicer car, more delivery because time is tighter now. A few "I deserve this" purchases that seem completely reasonable in the moment. Nothing reckless, nothing dramatic, just the natural signs of moving up. But then something strange starts happening. The bank account doesn't grow the way it should. The extra income shows up every month, but the extra margin never quite settles in. And there's this low-level financial anxiety that just won't go away, even though the numbers on paper look better than ever. Here's what's actually going on beneath the surface. Most financial education teaches people to watch their spending, budget more, cut subscriptions, avoid debt, invest consistently. And that's all solid advice. But it often misses a much deeper problem. Sometimes the issue isn't overspending. Sometimes the issue is that the entire financial structure became harder to sustain. Lifestyle inflation is real, and a raise or promotion can quietly trigger it, making it harder to save or break free from debt, even when income is rising. But here's the twist that research actually reveals. Financial stress is shaped by far more than just income. Savings behavior, debt levels, employment conditions, income volatility, all of it shapes how secure someone actually feels, regardless of what their paycheck says. Two people can earn the exact same number and live in completely different financial realities. One has a role they understand, stable energy, predictable hours, enough mental space to manage money thoughtfully. The other has a larger paycheck, but also a role mismatch, rising stress, constant decision fatigue, and a quiet fear that one wrong move could throw everything off. On paper, the second person looks more successful. In practice, they're standing on far weaker ground. Now, let me make this real for you. Imagine a guy in his early 30s. Let's call him Marcus. He works in a technical role. He's sharp, reliable, respected. His work is visible and his results speak for themselves. Then the offer comes, a promotion, more money, more prestige, more influence. A title his younger self would have chased without thinking twice. So Marcus says yes. At first, he tells himself the adjustment period is totally normal. Of course he's tired. Of course the calendar is heavier. Of course he's in more meetings and doing less of the actual work he's great at. That's what growth feels like, right? But little by little, the clues start piling up. He stops reviewing his investments regularly, not because he doesn't care, but because by the end of the day, he's mentally spent. He starts moving money late, misses a bill once, then twice. He begins reaching for convenience as a substitute for control. And that pattern? That pattern is where it all starts to unravel. Research is clear on this. A lack of control over your financial situation is a major driver of how financial stress actually feels. It's not just about the absolute number in your account. And income volatility, including the kind that comes from shifting roles, irregular bonuses, or performance pressure, can crowd out long-term planning even when people genuinely want to do the right things. Now, Marcus isn't broke. And that's exactly what makes this so hard to catch. He can cover dinner. He can make the mortgage. He's still contributing something to retirement. From the outside, nothing looks broken. But inside the system, the cracks are already spreading. He's sleeping worse. He's spending more to recover from work, food, entertainment, things that make a brutal week feel bearable. He's saying yes to costs that buy relief, speed, and convenience. And because those expenses feel earned and reasonable, he never classifies them as financial damage. Here's a fact that should stop you cold. A meaningful share of high earners still live paycheck to paycheck. We're not talking about people who make $40,000 a year. We're talking about six-figure households who look successful from every angle and still feel like they're one bad month away from real trouble. Large-scale research consistently confirms this. Higher income can improve life satisfaction up to a point, but stress doesn't disappear just because the paycheck gets bigger. In fact, for some people, stress keeps rising as income climbs because the lifestyle they're funding and the role they're maintaining demands constant performance just to stay afloat. That breaks one of the most popular myths in personal finance, that more income automatically creates more peace. Think about the people around you. The manager who earns well but looks permanently exhausted. The couple making six figures who still feel behind every month. The high performer who became so consumed with preserving status that they stopped actually building wealth. These aren't rare exceptions. And then come the conversations people have quietly, not in public, but in private. Things like, "I thought I'd feel safer at this income level," or "I make more than I ever have, but I don't feel ahead," or the one that should be the loudest warning sign of all, "I don't even have time to think clearly about my money anymore." That last sentence, that's the one that should stop you. Because wealth building is not only a math problem, it's a behavioral system. And if a new role destroys the routines that support saving, investing, clear thinking, and patience, then the salary increase can be entirely offset by behavioral decline. And behavior is what actually compounds over time. This is why the early warning signs look so small. A little more spending, a little less attention, a little more pressure, a little less discipline, a little more reacting, a little less planning. None of it looks dangerous on its own, but this rarely collapses all at once. It erodes through repeated trade-offs that felt completely justified in the moment. And there is one more layer here that most people don't see until it's too late. When stress takes over, people don't just spend differently. They think differently. They shorten their time horizon. They seek relief faster. They postpone the decisions that require calm, and that includes some of the most important financial decisions they will ever face. So the strange thing isn't that some people earn more and still feel stuck. The strange thing is how predictable that pattern becomes once a career move starts interfering with the behaviors that create real financial stability. And here's what that means. The promotion was never just a career event. It was the first visible signal of a deeper system changing underneath the person. And in the next part, that system stops looking inefficient. It starts looking dangerous. Now the tone shifts, because what I'm about to show you changes everything. Up until this point, the story could still be explained away as bad habits, a little lifestyle creep, a rough season. And a lot of people stop right there. They tell themselves it's just discipline, just willpower, just needing to do better. But that explanation is too small, and it lets the real problem completely off the hook. What we're actually looking at is not a spending issue. It's not even just a career issue. It's a systems problem that rewires how a person thinks, reacts, plans, and invests at the deepest level. And once you see it, the contradictions stop looking like bad luck. They start lining up in a pattern. Why does someone with a higher salary start making worse money decisions? Why does a more prestigious role often create less financial clarity, not more? Why do smart people who understand numbers perfectly well begin acting in ways that quietly destroy their long-term wealth? Because the problem was never intelligence. The problem is cognitive load under sustained pressure. Here's what the research actually says, and I want you to hear this clearly. Stress alters financial decision-making. It amplifies maladaptive choices. It pushes people toward automatic, distorted thinking patterns rather than the kind of balanced judgment that good financial decisions require. And acute, ongoing stress can exaggerate risk-taking biases in ways the person often doesn't even notice is happening. Think about what that means for your money. Real wealth building depends on repeated good decisions made consistently over time under ordinary life conditions. Saving, investing, reviewing risk, avoiding impulse, delaying gratification, staying consistent for years. All of that requires mental bandwidth, cognitive space that stress doesn't just reduce, it actively consumes. So when a new role starts demanding more in the wrong ways, the financial system around that person doesn't crash dramatically. It softens, then it weakens. Then it quietly starts failing in ways that take months or years to fully show up. Here's the contradiction that should bother you. The outside world sees a promotion as evidence of increased capability. But inside the individual, that new role might be generating more ambiguity, more social pressure, more context switching, more emotional labor, and critically, far less recovery. And those conditions don't just cause burnout. Research shows they raise burnout risk significantly, especially when workload and role ambiguity rise while support and autonomy drop. Now translate that directly into real life. Someone gets promoted because they were exceptional in one environment. Then the environment changes completely. The tasks become less concrete. Feedback arrives slower. The politics get heavier. Expectations are less visible but far more dangerous. And the skills that made them valuable, the ones that got them here, are no longer what the role rewards. That's not a raise, that's a psychological relocation. And if the relocation creates chronic mismatch, the damage spreads far beyond job performance. Let's come back to Marcus. At first, his financial habits didn't collapse. They softened. That's how this always begins. He started postponing decisions. He left cash sitting idle because researching where to put it felt like just one more thing to figure out. He avoided looking at his portfolio after rough weeks. He delayed tax planning because opening another spreadsheet after a brutal day felt genuinely unbearable. He kept more in checking than made any sense, not because it was optimal, but because simplicity felt cheaper emotionally than thinking it through. And that's where high earners quietly lose years. Not through one catastrophic mistake, through decision fatigue. Decision fatigue research has shown that repeated decisions degrade the quality of later judgment, and that under time pressure or stress, people fall back on default reactions instead of careful evaluation. That's not weakness. That's how the human brain works when it's been pushed past its limit. But here's the part that should land hard. A stressed professional doesn't just have less energy, they have a shorter financial time horizon. They stop thinking in decades and start thinking in Fridays. They stop optimizing for compounding and start optimizing for getting through the week. They stop asking, what does this do to my wealth over 10 years? And start asking, what makes today easier? And that one question, repeated enough times, gets profoundly expensive. Convenient spending rises and goes unnoticed. Subscription waste lingers. Tax inefficiencies stay untouched. Retirement contributions continue on autopilot, but without any real intention behind them. Investment allocations drift. Insurance goes outdated. Cash management gets sloppy. The person still looks disciplined because some automated systems are running in the background, but the strategic layer of their financial life has gone completely dark. This is the discovery most people never put into words clearly enough. A promotion can increase gross income while reducing net decision quality. And when that happens, the extra money doesn't behave the way people expect. Instead of creating freedom, it gets absorbed by friction. Instead of building confidence, it funds recovery from work. Instead of expanding options, it maintains a more demanding life at a higher operational cost. That's why some high earners live in this strange emotional contradiction. They're objectively advancing, but subjectively, they feel less in control. They have more access, but less capacity. They're earning at a level their younger self would admire, while privately realizing they've become too depleted to manage success properly. And now here comes the theory that ties it all together. The real issue is not that people can't handle more money. The issue is that many people are pushed into career structures that demand a version of themselves that is fundamentally incompatible with sustained financial excellence. Read that again. Financial progress isn't only about earning power. It's about role fit, psychological stability, behavioral consistency, and the preservation of decision quality over long stretches of time. If a new position raises your salary but degrades those conditions, then what looks like progress may actually be an extraction mechanism. The company gets your adaptability, your nervous system absorbs the uncertainty, and your financial life pays the hidden tax. Investor behavior research confirms it. Stress, fatigue, and regret push people toward hesitation, distorted risk responses, and weaker reinvestment behavior over time. So if a role keeps someone in a prolonged state of strain, their financial behavior can gradually shift from strategic to purely reactive, even without any dramatic crisis triggering it. Now the picture is coming into focus. The problem was never just earn more, save more, invest more. That advice assumes the machinery of behavior stays intact as income rises. But too often, the machinery is the very thing being damaged by the path used to earn the extra money. And that leads to the strongest contradiction of all. Some promotions improve income while quietly degrading the personal operating system required to turn that income into actual wealth. Once you understand that, a new question emerges. Not how do I earn more, but what kind of life structure keeps me sharp enough, calm enough, and consistent enough to keep compounding over the long run? Because the person who answers that question correctly doesn't just earn. They build. And the people who ignore it usually don't understand what they're losing until the first real financial shock exposes just how fragile the whole structure had already become. Then something concrete happens. Not a dramatic collapse, not the kind of disaster you'd see in a movie. It almost never is. Usually, it starts with one event that should have been completely manageable. A car repair, a medical bill, an emergency flight, a gap between the bonus they were expecting and the one that actually landed, a layoff rumor that turns a confident professional into someone checking spreadsheets at 2 a.m. and finding things that don't add up. And that's the moment the illusion starts to crack. Because up until that point, Marcus could still tell himself the story most high earners tell themselves. I'm doing fine. I'm just busy right now. Things are tight because life is full. Once this quarter settles, I'll get everything organized. But financial resilience doesn't reveal itself during normal months. It reveals itself when life interrupts the plan. And here's the research that should make every high earner stop and think. Access to liquidity and emergency savings is one of the most powerful buffers against a drop in financial well-being after a shock, whether that shock is income-related or expense-related. Households with stronger emergency savings also fare significantly better than households relying mainly on discretionary cash flow, even when overall income is similar. That distinction is everything. Because Marcus's problem was never his salary, it was the structure under the salary. He was earning more than before, but he also had higher fixed costs, less mental energy to manage them, and weaker financial maintenance across the board. He was relying on future income to protect him, instead of present liquidity. And that system works just fine, right up until reality asks for cash right now. Here's what really happened. The promotion increased his gross income, no question. But the role also increased friction across every layer of his life. More work dinners that weren't optional, more image to maintain, more convenience spending to survive the pace, more delayed decisions, more "I'll deal with that later," and later kept arriving, but the decisions never got made. Then the car repair came. Not catastrophic, a few $1,000s, the kind of thing that shouldn't have caused stress at his income level, but it exposed the truth. He technically had the money somewhere, but not where it needed to be. Some of it was tied up. Some was mentally earmarked for upcoming expenses. Some was supposed to go into investing, but hadn't moved yet. Some had already dissolved into a more expensive lifestyle he never consciously chose. It just happened, gradually, invisibly, one reasonable decision at a time. And suddenly someone with a solid title, a real income, and a respectable resume was feeling something that didn't make sense on the surface. Fragility. That feeling is far more common than anyone admits out loud. Research and reporting consistently show that a meaningful percentage of high earners, including households earning well into the six figures, still live paycheck to paycheck. We're talking about people with impressive salaries who have almost no financial buffer between them and the next unexpected expense. That's not because they're careless. It's because income alone doesn't guarantee flexibility, especially when fixed costs rise faster than savings behavior does. So Marcus does what most people do in that moment. He solves the immediate problem, moves money around, uses a credit line temporarily, postpones an investment contribution, tells himself it's a one-time thing. Crisis managed. But the real damage had already been done. Not to his credit score, not to his accounts, to his picture of himself. He realized his financial life wasn't robust, it was performative. From the outside, everything looked stable. From the inside, the system only worked if nothing went wrong. And that's not stability. That's dependency dressed up as success. Emergency savings research makes this painfully direct. Even modest liquid savings can reduce hardship significantly after financial shocks, while low liquidity amplifies the damage, sometimes far beyond the initial cost of the event itself. Research from JP Chase reinforces this. Households with similar overall liquidity still fare worse when their emergency reserves are thin, because the psychological and behavioral ripple effects of a financial shock can outlast the financial hit itself. Now the conclusions start forming on their own, and they're sharper than most people want to hear. First, the promotion didn't fail because more income is bad. It failed because the new role changed behavior faster than it strengthened financial foundations. The salary grew, the system didn't. Second, the increase created the appearance of safety while quietly eroding the habits that produce actual safety. That's why the first real interruption felt so much larger than it should have. Third, the damage was cumulative. No single expense was reckless. No single decision was obviously wrong. The harm came from dozens of small concessions made under pressure, each one defensible in isolation, each one slightly reducing resilience until the buffer was essentially gone. And this is where the broader pattern becomes impossible to ignore. High-income people don't typically collapse because they lack intelligence or discipline. They collapse because their cost base rises, their recovery capacity drops, and their financial system becomes optimized for continuity, but not for resilience. In that condition, one surprise isn't just an expense. It's a test of whether their lifestyle is genuinely supported by assets and buffers, or merely by the next paycheck arriving on schedule. Now add the psychological layer, because this is the part people almost never talk about. Once Marcus sees the weakness, his entire relationship with money changes. He becomes defensive. He feels behind, even while earning well. He approaches future expenses with tension instead of confidence. He becomes less willing to take intelligent long-term risks because he now understands his short-term cushion is far thinner than he imagined. And that matters deeply for investing. A person who feels financially exposed behaves differently with risk, with timing, with consistency. They delay investing. They interrupt contributions. They hold too much idle cash. They react emotionally to market noise because peace of mind starts feeling more urgent than optimization. So the revelation isn't just that Marcus needed a better budget. The revelation is that he accepted a version of success that weakened his ability to convert income into resilience. That's what really happened. He didn't become irresponsible overnight. He became overloaded. He didn't fail because he lacked ambition. He failed because the system rewarded visible advancement while quietly taxing invisible stability. He didn't misunderstand money. He misunderstood what kind of life structure money actually needs in order to compound into freedom. And once that's clearly understood, the conclusions get sharper and harder to argue with. A higher salary is not automatically a stronger financial position. Emergency savings and liquidity matter far more than most people realize when real-world shocks arrive. A career move that increases income while reducing behavioral consistency can leave someone looking richer on the surface while functioning poorer underneath. This is why some people with smaller incomes sleep better than people earning twice as much. Their lives are less inflated. Their systems are simpler. Their buffers are real. Their choices don't depend on constant performance just to stay intact. And Marcus finally sees the painful irony. The promotion he thought would make him secure actually made him more exposed. Not because ambition is wrong, but because he never asked the one question that actually mattered. Will this new version of my life make it easier or harder to build durable financial strength? He asked whether it paid more. He asked whether it looked impressive. He never asked whether it would preserve the margin, clarity, liquidity, and consistency required to keep compounding. Now he knows. And once someone sees this clearly, they can no longer pretend the answer is simply earn more. Because the truth is harder than that. Some careers don't just consume time, they consume the exact conditions needed to build wealth. And now comes the part that actually changes things. Not just understanding the trap, but knowing exactly how to get out of it. This is where the game changes. Because now the question isn't whether the trap is real. The research is clear. The pattern is documented. And if you've been honest with yourself through this video, you've probably already recognized pieces of your own story in it. The real question now is, what do you actually do about it? And this is where most people make their second and often more costly mistake. They try to solve a structural problem with motivation. They tell themselves they'll get more disciplined, track every dollar, eliminate emotional spending, finally get serious about investing, do better next month. And then next month looks exactly like this one. That's because motivation is not the first solution here. Structure is. Let me show you a step-by-step framework, not based on theory, but on what actually works when your financial life is being quietly eroded by overload, stress, and misaligned career growth. And quick reminder, this is financial education, not personalized financial advice. Always work with a qualified professional for decisions specific to your situation. Step 1. Calculate your survival number. Not your full lifestyle number. Not the one that includes restaurants, subscriptions, weekend trips, or spending that only exists because work life became too chaotic. Strip all of that away. Your survival number is the bare minimum your life needs to keep functioning if income slows down or stops completely. Write it out. Housing, utilities, food, insurance, transportation, minimum debt payments, core family obligations. That's your monthly baseline. Once you have it, multiply it by 3 as your first real target, and push towards 6 months or more if your income is variable or if your household carries higher risk. Here's why this matters more than almost anything else. When you don't know your survival number, every financial decision carries vague, ambient fear. When you know it, uncertainty becomes measurable. And measurable fear is infinitely easier to manage than the kind that just floats in the background of every financial thought you have. Step 2. Separate emergency money from investing money. Completely. This is where a lot of smart people quietly sabotage themselves. They hate holding cash. Every idle dollar feels like a missed opportunity. They want every dollar working. But emergency money isn't supposed to maximize return. It's supposed to buy you time, flexibility, and clear thinking when life gets noisy. That's its only job. And it cannot do that job if it's mixed in with long-term investments that could drop 20% right when you need the funds most. Keep emergency savings liquid. Keep it accessible. Keep it separate. Don't optimize it. Protect it. Step 3. Automate before you debate. If you rely on willpower every month to save and invest, you're asking a depleted brain to win the same argument against immediate comfort over and over again. That's not a sustainable strategy, and the research backs this up clearly. Automation works because it removes the need for repeated effort and bypasses the present bias that makes "I'll do it next month" feel completely reasonable in the moment. Set an automatic transfer right after income lands, even if the amount feels small. Small and consistent builds real cushions. Ambitious and irregular builds anxiety. Step 4. Run a friction audit. This is where it gets uncomfortable, but this is where the real leverage is. Look at your actual role, your real schedule, the way your work environment affects your spending, your sleep, your mental state, your behavior. Ask yourself these questions honestly. Does this job generate convenience costs that are quietly consuming my raise? Does stress drive me to spend to recover? Am I paying for speed, relief, image, or exhaustion? Did my income rise while my financial behavior actually got worse? If the answer is yes, some of your financial problem isn't a money management problem. It's a life design problem. And the mistake most people make is analyzing spending without ever analyzing the machine producing the spending. Step 5. Build a 2-track money system. Track 1 is protection. Track 2 is compounding. They work together, but they are not the same thing, and confusing them is one of the most expensive mistakes in personal finance. Protection includes your emergency savings, insurance review, debt containment, and monthly cash clarity. Compounding includes retirement contributions, diversified long-term investments, and any deliberate wealth building that depends on time and consistency. Trying to invest aggressively without building liquidity first doesn't make you bold. It makes you fragile. Research from Vanguard puts it directly. Emergency savings matter just as much to financial wellness as long-term investing, because when shocks arrive, liquidity is what protects the entire system from unraveling. Step 6. Reduce fixed cost arrogance. This one is sneaky and one of the most dangerous side effects of rising income. When income rises, people begin treating temporary earnings as permanent capacity. A bigger apartment locks in a higher baseline. A leased car adds a monthly obligation that doesn't disappear during slow months. Social pressure inflates spending at the exact same time a new role inflates stress. A flexible cost base gives you more actual power than a flashy income ever will. Resilience isn't built only by earning more. It's also built by needing less to remain stable. Step 7. Restore decision quality. If your current role is draining your ability to think clearly, no spreadsheet alone will fix your financial life. You need fewer open loops, fewer unmanaged accounts, fewer financial tasks floating in your head with no home. Fewer "I should really deal with that" items that never get dealt with. Simplify what can be simplified. Automate what repeats. Block one weekly financial review, 20 minutes, same time every week. Not a dramatic overhaul, a protected routine. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is to preserve the mental conditions required for consistency. Step 8. Redefine what career advancement actually means. This is the hardest step because it challenges the story most of us grew up believing. If a role pays more but destroys your financial behavior, your health, your stability, or your capacity to invest with any real discipline, then the raise may actually be inferior to a lower stress path with stronger long-term compounding potential. That doesn't mean avoid ambition. It means measure ambition correctly. Ask the real questions. Will this role improve my savings rate? Will it preserve my energy? Will it increase or reduce forced spending? Will it help me stay consistent with investing or make that harder? Will it strengthen my actual margin or just enlarge my image? That's what financially mature thinking sounds like, and it's rare, which is exactly why the people who think this way tend to end up in a very different place 5 years from now. Step 9. Build defense before you build speed. Evidence-based savings research is consistent on this. Incremental, practical strategies tied to real systems outperform abstract intention every time. So before chasing advanced investment tactics, make sure the basics can survive actual life. Cash buffer, automated saving, controlled cost base, a career role you can sustain without falling apart. Step 10. Make one move in the next 24 hours, not 10 moves. 1. Calculate your baseline expense number right now. Open a separate savings account if you don't have one. Set that automatic transfer. Cancel one recurring expense that only exists because your work life became too chaotic to optimize. Move one financial task out of your head and into a scheduled system. Action breaks the pattern faster than insight alone. Always. And here's the final piece, the one most people resist most strongly. If your current version of success depends on constant strain just to maintain itself, then what you have isn't wealth building, it's performance maintenance. Real financial strength feels different. It feels quieter, less impressive from the outside. It often involves slower lifestyle growth, more liquidity, fewer ego-driven purchases, and career choices made not just for prestige, but for sustainability. The financially strongest person in any room isn't always the one with the most impressive title or the largest salary. Often, it's the one who built a life that protects judgment, preserves margin, automates discipline, and compounds without drama. And once you understand that, the game changes completely. Because you stop trying to look financially advanced. You start trying to become financially durable. And durable people don't just survive shocks. They use clarity, structure, and patience to make sure the next decade belongs to them, on their terms. Than any of that. A person can earn more and still become financially weaker. They can rise professionally and lose the stability that makes wealth actually possible. They can look successful from every angle while quietly damaging the exact conditions required to compound over time. And here's what makes it so hard to catch. It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like winning. More money, more title, more recognition, more of everything that the world tells you is the definition of progress. And that's precisely why the trap works. What we traced through this entire story comes down to this. Money only changes your future when your life is structured well enough to hold it. If your role consumes your time, your clarity, your consistency, and your margin, then higher earnings can become a very expensive illusion that takes years to undo. Now let me give you the clean summary, the things you walk out of this video with. Know your survival number, the actual minimum your life needs to function. Build your emergency reserve before anything else, and keep it separate from investing. Automate your saving so it doesn't depend on how you feel on any given week. Run a friction audit and look honestly at what your work life is actually costing you in spending and decision quality. Build a two-track system, protection first, compounding second. Reduce your fixed cost base wherever possible. Restore the mental conditions required for consistent financial behavior. And redefine what ambition means in the context of your actual financial health, not just your title. One move in the next 24 hours. That's all that separates people who understand this from people who actually live it. But here's the layer I want to leave you with, the one that stays open on purpose. This isn't only about one promotion, one job, or one rough quarter. It's about the kind of life you are designing, often without realizing it, through every decision you make about career, income, lifestyle, and status. Some people are building resilience. Others are building a polished trap that works perfectly until it doesn't. And both look almost identical from the outside. So before you chase the next title, the next raise, or the next version of a life that sounds impressive to other people, stop and ask yourself the one question this whole video has been building toward. Will this make me more financially durable, or just more dependent on keeping the machine running? That question alone can save you years of rebuilding. Because once you start thinking that way, you stop confusing motion with progress. You stop worshiping income without examining the structure around it. And you start building a financial life that can survive bad months, wrong turns, and unexpected shocks without collapsing under its own weight. That's where real confidence comes from, not from appearances, not from titles, not from a salary number that looks good on paper. From stability, from flexibility, from having enough clarity to know what to say yes to, and enough discipline to walk away from what only looks good from the outside. And maybe that's the question you carry with you after this. How much of what you're calling ambition right now is actually alignment, and how much of it is pressure wearing the mask of progress? Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep seeing personal finance and investment content that truly respects your intelligence and doesn't peddle simple answers to complicated questions. Click above, check out more in the next video.